Hi, it's Ross. I'd like to talk a little bit today. Something's been weighing on my mind. I promised myself I'd really stay out of politics. There's a lot of people talking about all the insanity that's going on. But what I thought I'd talk about today is, it seems like my generation, the baby boomers, are getting a lot of flack. And I want to share kind of my view on society as I see it now. Um, you know, I grew up, I was born in 58, so I pretty much grew up in the 60s. And when I was a kid, boys were boys, girls were girls, and boys did boy stuff. There was no questioning, am I a boy, am I a girl? It's just pretty obvious how things worked out. Um, it was, and I watch what's going on with this whole trans movement, which it boggles my mind. I've been watching this for a while, and in my humble opinion, I think it's a social political construct. There's nothing organic about it. People are trying to bend society to what they think it ought to be instead of letting it organically mature the way it should. You look at this with the whole gay community. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was still considered a mental illness. Then, that there changes of opinion, and, the gay community is a lot more accepted in the society now than they were back in the 60s. But, my childhood consisted of building forts, playing games. All-star wrestling, that was really popular. Playing football, riding bikes. You couldn't keep me inside. And I find it really interesting. I drive around all over the place, and I never see any kids playing. Once in a while, I saw kids out throwing a basketball up, but, if I lived out here as a kid, holy smokes, you'd never get me in. And, I look at a lot of younger people today who are overweight, very overweight. They're not toned. It's sedate living on eating junk food. My dad was a blue-collared guy. We lived in the suburbs, and this is out in California, in the Bay Area. We're like out in the third ring suburbs, and my dad worked in a shipyard. He was a steel fitter, welder, worked on marine engines, all that crap. My mom was a housewife. She took care of the house. And I guess now that's not such a noble profession. But you know what? People don't realize, and I know a lot of people I'm talking to from my generation, mom ran the house. Dad did his thing, but mom ran the house. I had meals prepared for me. My mother cooked everything. There was nothing that came out of, packages or frozen pizza. It was some kind of meat, a vegetable, and a carb. That was everyone. I would say 98% of the people kids of my age were all relatively fit. I was kind of chunky as a kid. But then again, over one summer, I grew almost 2 inches, so everything stretched out. But yeah, we had some hefty kids, but they were out there playing with us too, and, it's just, there was just so much that's going on now that wasn't happening when I was younger. That's why there's so much stuff that's hard to relate to, like this obsession with video games and phones. And, I just find it really baffling. The other aspect of this is I wanted to address, it seems like there's Gen X and beyond seems to think that the baby boomers, destroyed everything. Well, we did a lot of really good things too. I'm not going to say we did it all perfect, but I think my generation left the country better than it was when we started. I honestly believe that. Because most of the people I talk to from my generation, retired from long careers at this, at that. And, I just really don't see that we destroyed anything. Every generation does the best they can. My dad was from the the greatest generation. He fought in World War II, Korea, part of Vietnam, and retired from the Navy. Had some pretty strong opinions on a lot of different things, but my dad was always around. And, it's one of the things I see continually is how many broken families people are dealing with. When I was a kid, marriage, having a married nuclear family you lived in was the rule, not the exception. Yeah, I knew some kids that they were divorced, and they made it sound kind of cool because, well, I get 2 Christmases and 2 birthdays, spend the summer at my dad's and winter at mom, blah, blah, blah. They weren't happy kids. I'm not going to say that nuclear family was the answer for everything, but I had a father who cared a lot. And he spent a lot of time when he could, taught me a lot of different stuff, taught me how to, tune up small motors, work on cars. And God, having a father is so flippin' important, as is having a mother. We need both of them. That's the way we are set up biologically, where humans bond, and that we have kids and we raise them, and then they raise more kids. Right now, with all this abortion hoo-ha going on, the population's shrinking. And, I can't envision a lot of these kids especially these young men who can't grow beards, have kind of boobs, and I just can't see them procreating, to be honest with you. I was kind of wondering what I was going to step into talking about this, but then high school, I graduated high school in 76. 70s was a great era until the end of it. Carter administration just tanked the whole economy. And, but even then, we did not have this assault on the core social order of our society, like what's going on now, of trying to convince people that they're the opposite sex, or they're actually gay, or these. I cannot believe they're having gay drag shows at schools of all places. Makes me wonder, why don't these drag performers ever go to like a retirement home? No, they got to go in front of kids and try to show some other boy that dressing up like a female clown is something normal. Why don't they go down to the VFW and put on a drag show? Because ultimately they know there's something deeply wrong with what they're doing. A man dressing up as a woman prancing around. Yeah, on Halloween maybe. I'll even admit I went to as a good fairy back in the 80s, went to a Halloween party and I was a good fairy. But it was a gag. I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. But a lot of these people think they're actually the sex they're trying to be. I've got a real buzzkill for you. Thinking does not make it so. We are what we are. Whatever created us, God, nature, whoever, we are what we are, live with it. So, going off on the boomers. We, like I said, we look at all the scientific development that's happened over the last 40 years. That was all boomers. Silicon Valley was boomers. Bill Gates was a boomer. I'm not saying he's a great guy, but he did do something recently that changed the world. I know there might be some people out there who can truly relate to this, that I look at society today and like wonder, what planet am I on? Watching all this insane protesting and, this huge mindset against Trump. And hey, well, I don't get it, and the problem is it's just ruining everything from everybody else. So I'm going to wind this down. I've had my tirade for today, so I'll be back with something else. I haven't made as many videos as I'd like to. Got a puppy, so probably relate to that. But hopefully more will be coming along. Well, I hope everybody has a blessed day. Sure turned out to be a nice one where I'm at. Got some lawn mowed. So have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.